Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, along with my cousin and co-host,
Gab.
and it is time go. We're doing a movie that is in theaters currently. We are doing, I was about to say the year, but I'm like currently. So it's Project Hail Mary from 2026 if you're listening in the far future. If this is
The
all that
year of our
remains.
Lord.
Yes, the year of our Lord 2026. So, Gab, having now seen it kind of by force, well, let me ask you something. Before I randomly suggest this to you after I seen it in the theater, had you heard much about it or no?
Um, that's a really good question. I don't think that I knew more than like there's a Ryan Gosling space movie.
I think for me, Ryan Gosling has just won me over so much with his past few movies, especially since The Nice Guys, that whatever he does, I'm going to see it.
Did you see La La Land?
I still have not seen La La Land.
Okay, I saw it once in the movie theaters. I remember crying, but I don't remember anything that happened. So I feel like we should do that at some point.
If you want to bring it, I will watch it. Have you seen the La La Land parody poster that they did for this movie?
Yes, I have.
Which I feel like this is one of the first times that normally I just keep one poster up during our episode. I'm gonna just keep changing the posters because their actual poster is okay. All
Mhm.
of the fan made or like very pseudo promotional ones that are just other Ryan Gosling movies are so much better.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll be varying between those because I like to create more work for editing, Dylan. Screw that guy.
Yeah, fuck him.
All right, take it easy there. So Gab, now that you've seen it in the theater, what is Project Hail Mary about?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
Explain!
As you would a child.
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
Well, Dylan, Project Hail Mary, based on the book of the same title, is about a middle school science teacher who we come to find is a former scientist who is recruited in a scientific mission to help save the cooling planet, ends up aboard a spacecraft and ends up alone in space, or so he thinks.
Okay,
Huh?
nailed it. Not bad.
Okay, that was my seventh take, so
I wasn't going to say that. I was going to let that go.
sorry.
Do you want to hear the IMDb plot summary?
Yeah, because it's probably better than mine.
Honestly, it's very similar. Although you made more of the reveal of him being a former scientist. You were like, and get this, he's also a scientist. The science teacher wakes up alone on a spaceship. As his memory returns, he uncovers a mission to stop a mysterious substance killing Earth's sun, and then unexpected friendship may be the key.
Oh, okay.
We only have one tagline.
All right, lay it on me.
It's fine. That's not the tagline. That's me.
I
My
was gonna
commentary on
say.
the tagline. How's the planet doing? It's fine. Believe in the Hail Mary.
Ah, it just feels a little too on the nose. Like we get it. We know what a Hail Mary play is. Like you didn't need to do that.
Well, not to get into an opinion too early, but they do make a point of like really spelling out what a Hail Mary is in the movie too. And I was like, is this for foreign audiences? Because I'm well aware of the Hail Mary.
Yeah. This is like a platitude at this point.
Yeah. All right. What do we say after this? Do we want to go more into it, or should we just stop right here and say there's going to be full spoilers ahead and get into opinions?
So there's definitely going to be full spoilers ahead. I think that anybody listening to this has likely already seen this movie. So I don't feel super I don't feel like we have to save any of the secrets, but I do think it would be good to give a little bit more context than that just so we're all on the same page.
Okay. So Ryan Gosling plays Ryland Grace, who is a science teacher and a former scientist. He is recruited by Ava Stratt, who was assembling a mission, Hail Mary, because astrophage, a new, what would you call it? Bioorganism,
Hmm.
bacteria of some kind, is eating the sun. Astrophage, which literally means sun eater. And we have to figure out by going to the one star that is not dimming in the nearby infected suns, what is making it different and what is stopping the astrophage.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that a little
Yeah.
bit more in there. And I guess if we're getting to full spoilers, and once he gets to the sun that he is going to, Tau Ceti, he happens to run into, he gets a neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another scientist or engineer in this case who is going to the uninfected star to figure out why the hell it's not infected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. And again, like I said, if you haven't seen this movie already, please stop listening to this and go see it. And if you have and you're not happy with our description, then go fuck yourself.
Commence fucking yourself.
Okay. Should we get right into the opinions?
Yes.
In this critic's opinion,
That's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
So I would like to start with the question, have you read the book?
I have not. I am functionally illiterate by this point, Gab. I've done nothing but watch movies and TV. It's been so long since I've read anything. Corey was talking to me. He was like, "Oh, you should read Absolute Batman." And I was like, "I truly aspire to read again someday."
He has been, I'm actually so proud of him and I feel like very good about this. He is, as you know, like very masculine. Like he's just like a masculine dude, but he read Absolute Batman.
He's not Randy Macho Man Savage.
No, but I just feel like I just feel like for context, if you're listening, like this is that you might be surprised by this, but I feel really good and really proud. He read Absolute Batman, he loved it. He read Absolute Superman, he loved it, and he ordered Absolute Wonder Woman and is reading Absolute Wonder Woman. And I'm like, way to not be a sexist pig. I am so lucky.
Yeah, he's a nerd first.
Yeah, but like also not a misogynist, and that's great.
I mean,
Love it.
It's a low bar, but God, are we glad he passed it? Because a lot of people don't, I guess.
They don't. Did you watch the Manosphere documentary, by the way?
Oh God, no. What are you talking about?
You should. It's the least surprising thing you'll watch all year, but it is highly disturbing.
Is it on streaming?
Netflix.
I might watch it.
Educate yourself because this is what the young men are doing. Anyway, that's not why we're here. So you didn't read the book because you can't read. I didn't read the book because I don't typically care for sci-fi, especially like space stuff. And I know people are going to come at me because sci-fi, space, like of course, but I think there is some sci-fi that doesn't necessarily exist within like the empty universe, you know?
Yeah. I would also say I'm not really a huge sci-fi or fantasy person in general. So that's definitely not the type of book that I would pick up first and foremost either.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You are a Star Wars fan, but that's like the exception to the rule.
It is such the exception to the rule. And I think the thing that I don't like really more than anything is the, oh shit, I'm alone in space category.
So let me ask you a quick question. Because he had a book before this, the author Andy Weir, The Martian. Did you see that movie?
Absolutely not.
It's actually, I don't want to call it a similar concept because they go on a manned mission to Mars and they accidentally end up leaving him behind in a storm and he has to survive on Mars until they can return. But it's similar in tone and feel and still kind of trying to remain optimistic in a terrible scenario, basically. If you did like this, I would definitely recommend it. But it's a lot of Matt Damon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I saw Interstellar.
Okay.
And I had a panic attack in the movie theater. And I'm not a panic attack person. Honestly, it's really the only one I've ever had. And I don't know why. I just felt like this whole alone in space, like no one can hear you scream. Oh my God, it's hopeless. Like it just freaked the shit out of me.
I mean, there's a reason it works in science fiction. It's conceptually terrifying.
Yeah.
The idea of there's nowhere to go. You are effectively trapped and no help is coming. Nothing can be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an immediately scary concept. It's the same reason that the zombie apocalypse can be really scary in the sense of you can start with somebody in the remains of Los Angeles, New York City, what we know to be a thriving, bustling place, and now there's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a scary idea.
Totally. So, when you said, "Oh, you should go see this movie," I was sort of like, "Sure, Jan." Like, yeah, okay. And then I guess I interpreted that we were doing it for the podcast. I felt as though I had no choice, so I got tickets and, kind of against my will, and against my better judgment, walked into the theater.
Was there any panic attack during the movie?
No, no, no,
Did you cry during the movie?
no. Are we going to get into this conversation now? It's a little early. Are you
Should we
okay with
wait?
that?
Yeah, we can wait.
Okay. So I just wanted to know if you had read the book. You said no. I also had not read the book. Is it something that you would consider now, or am I making you once again tell the listeners that you don't read and are not planning on starting anytime soon?
I think I'll have to start with some New Yorker cartoons, maybe a comic book, and I can work my way up to something like this.
Okay.
I
Would you
actually
be
do think I
interested?
might be planning on reading it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will say that I'm probably not going to, and I know people are going to be upset with me for that. And it's not because I'm not interested. It's just because I just feel like the written version of I'm Lost in Space might freak me out again.
I do have a couple of pages from the book that I am going to be reading to you during our fact segment just to
Great,
show you a little bit of differences type of thing.
great.
Yeah.
I'm open to it.
Okay, so where do we start is the question.
So I want to start by saying that I think this guy has a fucking awesome name.
Ryland
Ryland
Grace.
Grace. Like, just awesome. 10 out of 10.
You know what's so funny is I never jived up against the name Ryland once. And have you ever heard of that even as a name before?
No, but I do know a lot of people that have made up some pretty dumb names for their kids.
Ryland is a primarily masculine name of British origin, meaning land where rye is grown.
Well,
So he didn't
yeah.
make up the name entirely. It is an existing name.
Yeah.
Now
Yep.
I'm trying to think, is
I
there
like it.
I'm trying to think, is there a deeper reason for that? I don't really
No,
think so. Yeah.
no, it just sounds good. But I do really like it. I think it was really good. Um, some people have taken umbrage with it
Why?
because it's a made up name, supposedly, to them.
That's stupid.
I just think it sounds really good. You know?
It rolls off the tongue very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I figured I would warm us up with that. I really like the name Ryland Grace.
I will. It's such a not key character, but I will shout out the character Carl, who I should have wrote down who
Hmm.
played him. He's an actor from The Bear. I'm gonna get his name in a second because I think he's really good on that show. And it was nice to. I just felt good to see him show up in something. I was like, oh, good for you, man. And you know what?
Yeah.
He was really good as Carl. Like, it's such a cute character that really forms a friendship with Ryland that you
Yeah.
don't really expect him to.
If I am understanding this correctly, his role was meant to be much smaller, but he was so funny and they did so well together that they kept it in, right?
Yes, and his name is Lionel Boyce, is the actor.
Okay. Um, I want to talk a little bit about the the elephant in the room, which is of course Ryan Gosling, who is, I'll start by saying, a beloved actor, celebrity, human in our society, but also, to no fault of his own, arguably in the top 10 most attractive humans on the planet today. Right? Like,
I thought you were coming with like a bad thing. Are you asking me if Ryan Gosling's attractive?
I'm just saying, would you agree that he's in the top 10?
I think so. I'd have to really start thinking about the handsome men.
I mean, he played Ken, you know? And I also think we have to remember that there's like so much subjectivity to this question, and he is so charming and so talented, and he can sing and he can dance, and he's so funny, and he's got a partner for so long that he loves, and daughters who adore him. Like, yeah, he's the of the best of
A
us.
partner? You mean Ava Mendes, seen in Movie to Watch Before You Die, Training Day?
Yes, but oh, I forgot about that. But they're not married. I didn't want to say wife because
I
they're
didn't
not
realize that.
legally.
I assumed they were.
Yeah, no, they're not married.
Like Kurt Russell and
Um,
Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good for them. They saved themselves a lot of fucking heartache because this process is killing me. Anyway, the so here we have Ryan Gosling, who no matter how many weird sweaters you put him in and how low his glasses are on his nose, is one of the best looking people any of us have ever laid our eyes on. And you know what? I thank the Lord that I am alive in a time when I have the opportunity to pay a movie ticket price, a reasonable drop in the bucket, to go stare at a screen with Ryan Gosling on it for 2.5 hours. Like, that is a gift that I don't take for granted. But what I do want to point out is that this character, at his core, is an anxious nerd, right? He's an anxious guy. He's really nerdy. People don't listen to him. He's very alone in this world. And he's got a chip on his shoulder because he was dubbed a failure because people were not listening to him, didn't understand his ideas. They were a little bit too radical, right? But yet he is so sweet and kind and patient and charming and likable, and his partner left him for Mark. Like, I cannot believe, I don't believe, I refuse to believe that this is a person who has nothing to live for and nothing left for him on the planet Earth. I just don't.
He doesn't even have a dog.
I mean, you can't make me believe it. I just don't. And again, it's not Ryan Gosling's fault, and I can't imagine anybody else in this role. And obviously, the character has to be likable. He is a good person. He has to do the right thing. Like, that's inherently who he is. But Ryan Gosling looking up at I guess it was the people from the Project Hail Mary who came to the school and being like, I am nothing, I am no one. I ride a bike to work and it's not for exercise. I was like, there's no fucking way. There's no way.
To me, it feels like the movie paints him as somebody who is conflict averse and had a major failure once and really doesn't want it to happen again. So rather than leave the opportunity for failure, he avoids having to rise to the occasion. And it's only when Ava Strat comes along and sort of forces him into this situation, and he sort of is tempted back into doing something that he clearly has a passion for. That's the only reason he gets there. You know what I mean? And then, there's a brief moment where I'd like to be part of the mission if you think I can help. You know what I mean? That type of thing where he's really not trying to step on anybody's position. He's really not trying to do too much, but you can tell he sort of has an interest in being part of saving the world. You know what I mean? Because if the world cools 10 to 15 degrees, they said something about half the population will likely die. And it's not
Yeah,
going to get any
everybody's gonna
better
starve
from
to
that
death.
point. Yeah. Over
I
the
did
course
really
of the next
like
30 years.
they said that there would be mass starvation because the world leaders would not be able to ration the food. And I was like, fuck, that's so true.
They said mass starvation of a quarter of the population, and that's if everybody does work together, all the world's governments work together, which they won't, she says. So you can likely double the number, which
Yeah.
feels like a yeah, she's right type of thing. It's like
Yeah.
once the shit goes down, we're gonna fall apart. So we gotta collaborate while we can.
It was refreshing to see the end of the world posed as global cooling instead of global warming, you know?
Yeah, it's also refreshing in the sense of this movie. I feel like if made by somebody else, tries to make you have a panic attack and tries to be pure drama all the time, pure tension. I think we had mentioned Interstellar earlier. This could very easily have tried to have been constantly on that dramatic edge. And instead, this movie tries to have a lot of fun with the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really cool about that I feel like I've heard them say this in interviews a bunch, that the future isn't the end of the world, but it's a problem for humanity to overcome. And humanity is always doing things that were once thought impossible.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really, really nice in looking at it that way. And the author describes himself as an optimist, which it's nice if you can be, hard when you take a look around sometimes, but good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But do you agree that Ryan Gosling is too attractive to not have anything going for him?
They mess up his hair. They try and emphasize his flaws. I do love that once he wakes up, one of the things he writes on the board when he is really trying to figure himself out is always muscles question mark. Like
I did notice that.
was I always this sexy? God damn it.
I did really like that. That felt great. That was very self-aware. I will say when he wakes up in the very beginning of the movie and he's got the long hair and the beard, I was like, oh, this can't go on for much longer. I'll leave. This isn't what I came here for.
Which I've been told by people who have read the book that a lot more of the book is him waking up, trying to remember who he is, a lot of time spent with that. And I really said, I obviously like this movie. I'm the one who nominated it. It's already pretty long. I think they did the right thing cutting that down as much as possible because obviously that is a big part of things, him trying to remember who he is at first. But it is not what we didn't need this movie to be 3.5 hours while we watch that as well.
Yeah.
And I think the movie does a good job of he wakes up, he's unsure of himself, but he really does start to move, starts to figure out where am I in the galaxy right now? That's not my son. Oh my God. Realizing that the other crew members are sadly dead. And I think one of the first scenes that is really starts to hit you hard is him having his little impromptu funeral for Yao, and I feel bad because I'm going to butcher the super Russian name. So I'll say Yao and the other astronaut who have already died when he woke up. And he doesn't remember them, but he still has grief that they're dead. And it's really just settling in, which it's so sad, just him saying, I wish I wasn't alone, he says at some point.
Yeah.
And I do think, though, it's also so hard watching him, even though he has no confidence in himself, saying he can't say, I'm going to do my best to make sure you die for nothing. So he ends up like choking on the words and just saying, I'm going to do my best. And it's really tough. And it's like the most downer part of the movie somehow, it feels like, besides some more dramatic moments later in. But then, we finally get that alert later on that he is approaching the star, Tau Ceti. And that's when we really get to the crux of the movie, because even the description talks about an unexpected friendship may be the key. And it's really once we get to Tau Ceti and his stoner buddy pulls up that we are finally able to really get this movie going, because the movie's about working together, I feel like, as much as it is anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I did really wonder, and maybe this is an obvious question, and it's probably available in the book more readily, but so part of this movie is cutting back and forth between where we are in space currently and the past and sort of the uncovering of who this person is and why he's there and what the mission is. And so my question is, are those just moments for the audience, or are those moments of Ryland remembering things?
I think it's both. I think it's more explicitly both in the book, but it is both in the movie as well, I think. And that's why after the last time we see him remembering, which we're in full spoilers, so should I just say what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, please.
After we see him remembering that he was forced onto the trip, that's really the last time we see he still wants to come home, obviously, go back to Earth, but he's forced into making that choice of if he's going home or if he's going to, let's just put the character name out there, motherfucking Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it's a lovely character moment that even though he is interested in going home and he has that board as he's been remembering who he is, when he decides, no, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to go save Rocky, he wipes the board because it's not important anymore remembering who he is. It's remembering what's ahead of him and what he wants to do. And he starts calculating, how am I going to get back to him?
Yeah. And there's a moment in a flashback where Yao, who I believe is the captain of the ship, says, I think Ryland says to him, oh, you're so brave or whatever. And he says, you've got to have somebody to be brave for. And in that moment, it's Rocky that he decides to be brave for. But I feel like we're jumping ahead. We've got to get to the introduction of Rocky. So I will say this in terms of being on the spaceship. For somebody who is pretty anxious and very, dare I say, a little neurotic, right? Just a nerdy, sciencey guy. He doesn't know who he is. He's in space. I don't feel like he has a lot of that anxiety on the ship. I was expecting him to freak out way more. He sort of starts like exploring what's there, and he has that like streaming room where he can pretend to be on Earth, and he like has a couple of moments where he sits in the pilot chair and it says pilot detected, and he's like, no, 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 I'm not a pilot. But he does eventually figure out how to fly the ship and whatever. And I just I feel like considering he was forced against his will, which fair enough, he doesn't remember at that point. He doesn't do a lot of panicking when he realizes not only is he in space, not only is he headed towards something, but everyone else on the ship is dead and he's alone and he doesn't really know what he's doing. But I liked that.
I was going to say, I think he freaks out appropriately enough. We see him spending time drinking the 3 bags of vodka. We
Yeah.
see him dancing with, I found out they called it on the set, Moppy Ringwald.
Oh, that's
Uh,
funny.
we see his anxiety when he's pressed into situations like having to do the spacewalk, having to get the spacesuit on, having to be in zero gravity at all. Like, there are definitely, I think something that's nice about the movie is it constantly feels like he is overwhelmed by a lot of the problems, unless it's just thinking. Like, he's never overwhelmed by the thought processes. He's overwhelmed by having to take action.
Yeah.
Especially once Rocky is in play, they are fine to go back and forth and think about things. And then it's like, oh no, you've got to do it now. Like, I'm not going to do it. I'm a little stone guy. You've got to do this. And he's like, oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And I feel like now that I've mentioned him, can we just talk about Rocky? Can we talk about
Okay,
Rocky?
fine. Yes, take it away.
Rocky is a fucking delight and is so important to this movie. I cannot describe how much I would kill and die for this faceless, kind of voiceless creature. And yet,
Yeah.
I watched this movie twice, and each time I could not stop thinking about how much I love Rocky. And there's something really interesting that I saw earlier on Twitter, so I'm going to point it out now. How much Rocky is a foil for Ava Stratt. So, would you like me to read that to you, or do you want to give your opening thoughts on Rocky first?
No, please read.
So, the similarities in how Grace interacts with Rocky, and this is from Copperleaf. How Grace interacts with Rocky and Stratt in the movie are so striking. Their narrative foils and their similarities show how Grace relates to people he gets close to. When Grace first meets both of them, he tries to run away. They both end up racing him and chasing him down.
Mm.
Stratt's first words to Grace are knock knock. Grace and Rocky's first greeting is knocking on the wall. Stratt and Rocky are both established to be bad at jokes and have a very literal way of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I love Rocky's one joke. I only mean
Yeah.
one human. It's you. Grace calls both Rocky and Stratt mysterious. Grace, of course, asks Ava Stratt, can I think about it? With her replying, you have 3 hours. And asks Rocky, can I think about it? And do you remember how Rocky responds?
Think for a long time.
Think about it a long time. Oh, fuck! I love him so much!
Oh, I know.
Stratt takes Grace away from his environment to help solve the problem. Rocky leaves behind his environment to join Grace in his. Drew Goddard, you can write one hell of a screenplay.
Yeah.
And obviously Andy
I'll
Weir
give him
with
that.
the book.
Yeah.
Which Drew Goddard also adapted Andy Weir's other novel, The Martian. So I do think it made sense that they worked together. They've been working on this movie apparently for like 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Drew Goddard even said, he was like, when I first came on board, they already had Ryan Gosling attached to star and produce. And I was like, that's awesome. That makes it a lot easier for me knowing you have Ryan Gosling to fall back on.
Yeah. And his money, apparently. Um, again, can't convince me that this guy's a loser, but okay. So to kind of bridge this gap really quickly, Ryland gets to the star that he's
Tau
been
Ceti.
Tau Ceti, thank you so much. Which, by the way, could absolutely be the name of a city in Star Wars. No, like,
Tau Ceti, bitch. Tau Ceti, bitch.
oh, that's good. Gets to Tau Ceti and comes across this giant structure that kind of reminds me of, remember the game Kerplunk?
Yes, I absolutely see why you say Kerplunk. Yeah.
Yeah, like the sticks from Kerplunk.
Yeah, if you pull one
So-
stick, Rocky's whole ship is falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. So as it turns out, it almost looks like, if you don't know any better, it could be like a landing base or something for ships to come into and out of. It reminded me a lot of like when the smaller ships are sucked in by the Empire's like giant ships, you know?
Yeah, that's
So
no
that's what I thought
moon.
was happening. Say that again?
That's no moon. The
Yeah,
Death
yeah,
Star.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, his ship approaches this structure. It's a little bit confusing. The structure, I believe, kind of pulls him in. He goes away, it pulls him again. There's a gag there. But ultimately, we come to find that it is some other ship. And so Ryan Gosling, Ryland, understands that he needs to put on his spacesuit and go out and see what the fuck this thing is.
Which I don't want to skip over the fact that before that, when he's just fearfully running away from it and it's running back up to him, we keep getting alerted by the ship that it is throwing new blips at him, which is these little containers that are being thrown at him. And when it throws the first one, he goes, "It could be a message." And then he goes, "It could be a bomb." And it's so great the way he, not really understanding the ship, goes, "Shields up." You remember the shields, like, there aren't any shields. Why not? And it's really just this slight back and forth of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it really feels like that's when the not wanting to be brave Ryland is still right there, because he's like, I'm not going to go into space and grab this fucking thing. And so he totally misses the first one as it bounces off the ship. And they throw the second one. And it's such a great line when he goes, "Why is this one going so much slower?" And he takes a moment to think and he goes, "They think I'm dumb." He realizes, like, oh. And that's the one of the first like great sequences where you're sort of on the edge of your seat. Is he going to be able to get this message, this container, when he goes out on that moonwalk? Which, I'm sorry, what else were you saying about Rocky's opening sequence? Since I took that over because I'm so excited to be talking about the movie.
You know, you remember the details much better than I do. I'm thinking about him entering the tunnel and approaching
Yes. So
the ship.
eventually they've exchanged messages back and forth a couple times. And after doing so, Rocky's ship just sort of starts reaching out to his ship and creates this little docking tunnel between the two of them. And Ryland puts on his spacesuit and goes down the tunnel after he hooks up every piece of light he can, flashlights, bringing lights, wires, the whole kit and caboodle. Which I do love. I'm sure it skips over training him at some point, but like, I don't think the scientist slash teacher knows how to like pull up all this electrical wiring and like wire these things together, does he? Or is he just way smarter than me?
I mean, there
Well,
are
both
so
are true,
many
probably.
things
Yeah.
I have questions about. Like, how does the computer translate this language? But that's neither here nor there. We'll get there.
Well, we'll get into that. I feel like we sort of see them do that because at first they're just tapping at each other and just like, "How's it going?" Like, I love that initial interaction. And it feels like a very human way to respond, that he at first is very ready to like, "Do we got to fight, bro?" Like he very
He's got a
much first.
wrench.
Yes, he is ready. Like, we've all seen movies about aliens, and inevitably in almost every alien movie except E.T., the alien tries to do something fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think any one of us, if we were meeting a sentient creature that wasn't a human, would be ready to scrap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And rather than that, Rocky and him do try and communicate. And the way we see them establish communication is really smartly done with how they establish how to communicate and how to figure out any words. They start with the universal language of numbers. He brings him a clock. He figures out, because he doesn't have a face, he doesn't have eyes, it's echolocation. He figures out a way to show him one, have Rocky do his sing-songy noise for one, and they're off. And then we don't need to see them do the whole dictionary. We somehow get to the point of we can understand, oh, okay, they have an ability to talk to each other. He's got the computer automatically translating for us, which the one thing we don't see at all is the computer like translating back to Rocky. Rocky, and I think that's just for us as an audience, because we wouldn't want to watch the version where it's Rocky says something, translated to Grace. Grace says something, translated to Rocky, because it's just making things longer.
Totally.
And once you have it established, we don't care about it. That's why we don't need to see it. Once it's established, it's something really beautifully done in the filmmaking. Is we just start hearing that as Rocky's voice. We don't have to hear him actual sounds anymore. He just has a voice now.
Yeah.
And I love the establishing of his voice as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because at first we get, what is it? We get like a French version. We get a version that's going to grumble at him.
Yeah.
And
We
of
get the
course,
sexy time version.
we get the sexy version. And we get what arguably could have been the best version. Meryl Streep.
Oh, yes, of course. What can't she do?
She could do anything. Yeah. What's the line from Modern Family? Meryl Streep would be the right choice for Batman. Like,
Yeah.
But eventually we end up on our Rocky voice, which sort of sounds computery, but also they do a good job of it has just the right amount of emotion. You know what I mean?
Well, you obviously know how it came to be.
How do you mean?
Well, as I understand it, the puppeteer or the puppet master, James Ortiz, actually read the lines with Ryan Gosling and they ended up using his voice because he became so familiar with the character and his voice was so perfect that they just kept it.
Correct, you are, Gab. James Ortiz, who was one of 5, as they were dubbed, Rocketeers on set. He was the lead one, and he was the voice of Rocky, and he was there in every scene. Yeah. And I think he does such a good job of putting just a little bit of emotion where it's needed. And the first thing that's coming to my mind is when Rocky is talking about his mate, Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this movie has so many moments that are just fucking perfect. Where Rocky is talking about his mate, how long have you guys been together? 186.3 years or something like that. And Ryland says that's a long time. And what does Rocky say?
Not long enough.
Oh, God, I love that little rock bastard.
It's so good. Yeah. I think what obviously one of the points, right, is it creates so much humanity in this inhuman creature, right? He has emotions, he has feelings. I was devastated when he was talking about watching his crew die.
Yes, and that's James Ortiz did a really good job talking about this because I watched a bunch of interviews with all of them, and he said Ryland Grace has this story about entering his own power, and Ortiz was developing what is Rocky's story. And I think it's so sad hearing him talk about it. He called it a journey towards self-forgiveness. And even in ADR, they were changing slightly how he's able to talk about things because so much of his thing is forgiving himself for not being able to fix his crew.
Mm-hmm.
And again, one of the most beautiful moments of the movie is him seeing Ryland in this terrible situation and telling him, Rocky, fix.
Yeah.
And they just form such an important friendship that the movie then twists against you in the most devious, bastardish way. And I've seen this movie twice, and both times either myself or somebody else was actively sobbing at times during this movie.
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, again, full spoilers here. When Rocky, Gab, I feel like I should set it up better. So they get in the situation where they figure out the astrophage on Tau Ceti is not reproducing. It is not growing, so it's not cooling. Why isn't it reproducing? Because there is something living on the nearby planet that is going to a bacteria that is keeping it in, what's the word? Keeping it neutral, I guess I'll just say.
Yeah.
So they're going to go down to the planet that is, of course, named Adrian. And
Well, go ahead, explain why.
well, Rocky discovers the planet, so he names it after something. And at first, he wants to name it Medium Rough Textured Planet. And Ryland tells him maybe something a bit more personal, so he names it Adrian.
Yep.
And their plan is to go down to this planet, collect samples of the bacteria, which they can then hopefully reproduce to save both of their stars, save Earth, save Erid. Unfortunately, the actual process is much more difficult. And the thing that's tough is Rocky comes onto the ship, which Rocky coming onto the ship in and of itself is maybe the most delightful sequence of the whole movie.
Delightful. My favorite line from this whole movie, besides maybe Rocky hate Mark, is when he's going, I don't remember what he's repeating. It's like trash, trash,
Dirty,
trash.
dirty, dirty.
Thank you. He goes dirty, 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 and then he goes, "What is this room for trash?"
You know
I
what I
have
noticed
said
on the
that 700 times.
you know what I noticed on the second watch that I didn't notice on the first? At one point, Ryland is frustrated and he goes, uh, Grace, angry, grumpy, question, when last sleep? Like, and it just cracked me up. So the two of them are working together, and Rocky is in this little ball in the ship because he can't survive in Grace's atmosphere, and Grace couldn't survive in his atmosphere. But the thing is, as much as Rocky can think and help and has his own little atmospheric chamber in there to help with things like building the chain, once they get into the actual mission, it's Grace doing everything. Mm-hmm. And obviously, they have a tough time. The ship is being pulled towards Adrian's atmosphere. They need to pull back. They're trying to survive. They can't get the gravity back on. And we end up in a situation where Rocky needs to break out into our atmosphere to save Ryland. And I think it's something so beautiful about Rocky would have died for Ryland. Rocky thinks, you know what I mean? Rocky will not watch someone else die if he can stop it. And he drags Ryland to safety. And the way that the movie drags out, though, you can hear poor little Rocky screaming and space bleeding, whatever the fuck a rock can do. And I forget that the movie tells you that no matter what, Iridians are basically paralyzed while sleeping. Gab, it is so fucking tough. I thought he was dead. Like, I was certain he was dead. And Ryland is saying, I'll watch you sleep, bud, but you gotta wake up. And it's fucking devastating because they have established that on Arid, somebody needs to watch you sleep because you are paralyzed and you are vulnerable to predators.
Yep.
And boy, oh boy, the movie makes you unsure if he will wake up for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that initially, and I'm sure this is a universal experience for those of us who had not read the book, but initially I thought, okay, he's dead and this movie is almost over, right? He's gonna save Earth, and there will be like a day of honor for Rocky or whatever. Or they'll study Rocky and go find a way to go to his planet and save his planet, whatever it is. And then I think at some point I started to realize, oh, he's gonna wake up. And when he did wake up, that was my moment of emotion. I cried when he woke up. But I kind of felt a little bit like it was like formulaic, and it was like I either know that this is almost over or I know that like he's going to come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But what the movie then does after that is they've collected what they call Talmoeba. Ryland has produced a version of Talmoeba that will survive against nitrogen. They go off on each other separate ways, which is a very sweet scene where I'm like, just let them fucking say I love you to each other, god damn it. They didn't figure out how to say I love you because they're trying to do their whole goodbye thing. Although I do love we figure out the Arid goodbye is the shuffling the fist up one's arm. Yeah, it's adorable. And they do their little dance sequence again, but
love the dance sequence.
Love the dance sequence. They go their separate ways, and the unfortunate thing that they realize is that
that Ryland realizes.
Yes, Ryland realizes that because they bred the Talmoeba in these xenon breeder tanks that Rocky had created, which I'm giving myself a lot of credit for how much I'm remembering still, that it is eating through the xenon and it is destroying their astrophage, their fuel.
And it's going to eat through his ship, which is made of xenon, Rocky's ship.
Oh, Gab, you said it in a much more succinct way than we get to watch Ryland describe for probably a good minute to a minute and a half. It's going to eat through his breeder tanks. It's going to start eating through his whole ship. He's going to get radiation poisoning. He's going to die slowly and painfully. And I'm listening to this like, what the fuck? What the fuck, movie? Why would you save him only to tell me this? And it is so that we can put him in that position that I talked about where he has to choose return home with the fuel that Rocky has given him because it was supposed to be a one-way trip, or does he go save Rocky? And because the movie has set up that Ryland does not have any connections, he doesn't even have a dog on planet Earth. He truly is in this like position where he can choose one or the other. It really is not, he's not, Interstellar is a good example of, I always think of an Interstellar. He leaves behind his kid. And one thing I always jive against with that movie is he makes it back when his daughter is like 80 years old by this point and immediately leaves again. I was like, she's on like her deathbed. You don't want to stay for a week. You don't want to wait it out, man. But that's besides the point. Ryland chooses, I have to save Rocky. And god damn it, it is so sweet when he gets there, and it does a little bait and switch again where he's knocking on that thing and it's like, is he too late? You know what I mean? I have this saved here. So do you want to hear in the book how this exchange goes, a little bit of him getting there?
Yeah, please.
So he arrives and it says, I turn up my radio volume and all I hear is static. Rocky, a crackle. My ears perk up. Rocky? Grace, question? Yes, I've never been so happy to hear a few musical notes. Yeah, buddy, it's me, which I love that this establishes already, hearing musical notes. He understands his language.
Yeah.
You are here, question? His voice is so high-pitched I can barely understand him, but I understand Iridian pretty well now. Yes, I'm here. You are, he squeaks. He squeaks again. You are here. Oh, God, there's like 17 times during this movie where I'm just like, destroy the Earth, just save Aaron. Who cares?
I know. What does are you finished?
Yes.
How do you conceptualize in like our reality the relationship between Grace and Rocky? Because for me, it's like when your pet is sick and you're like, I'm trying to understand, and like you're communicating with me the best that you can, and I'm communicating with you, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to help you.
I've
but
heard
like
a lot
that
of equating him
barrier.
to a dog. But he's also like, it's if a dog was a genius, you know what I mean? That can also be an engineer. But yeah, there's a lot of that to it. And I think it's just so impressive the way that they make this creature so goddamn lovable.
Yeah.
And I do have actually one more little bit from the book of him making the choice, which I wish I had realized that before I read you the other part. But so this is what I'm left with. Option 1, go home a hero and save all of humanity. Option 2, go to Arid, save an alien species, and starve to death shortly after. I pull on my hair. I sob in my hands. It's cathartic and exhausting. All I see when I close my eyes is Rocky's dumb carapace and his little arms always fidgeting with something.
I love it.
Oh my God. You know what? Maybe I will read this book because God damn it. Every page I see, I'm like, oh, how can I not?
You did a good job reading, by the way.
For somebody who hasn't done it in decades, Gab.
Yeah.
Decades.
Yeah. Good job. I can't imagine how it would feel. Do you at all stumble upon on Instagram the reels from Modern Vet with like the doctors who are, oh my God, it's so cute. I'm going to send them to you. But like, I can't imagine being a veterinarian and watching this movie. I feel like you would just lose your fucking shit.
Apparently there's a thing that's cut out of the movie that's in the book of him trying to somehow medically help Rocky. And so he's cleaning this soot out of Rocky. So you read about this too. Yeah. That apparently it's part of Iridian healing, and Rocky reveals to him, you almost killed me. And I'm like, yeah, thank God they didn't put that in the movie. I don't need that.
Yeah, another twist and turn we didn't need. But I think it is realistic when you have like the unlimited time to tell a story. It's like, for sure, why wouldn't a human think that they were helping? And but whatever. How do you feel about the very, very last sequence? I guess let's build up to it. Let's talk. We've done enough chronologically. Let's talk about he saves Rocky.
Well, he saves Rocky, and we're right near the end now because it's like, what is left for him? He can't go back to Earth yet. So the next time we see him, it's kind of funny. We see him waking up somewhere. We see him on a beach. He mentioned he loves the beach because every time you're on the beach, it's a different beach. You know what I mean? Some conversation about, I guess it's the tides and the changing of the sand.
Mhm.
And we see him on that beach. The irony is we had seen earlier him sort of having a dream when he's in the little video room about being on the beach, and somebody's approaching him. I think it's actually himself approaching him in the dream, and then he wakes up and he's on the ship. But at the end, we see him on this beach, and there's a knock on the door. And I love that he's taken to calling the Hail Mary arm Armando. Armando is there, and we realize he is on Arid in a giant version of Rocky's Bubble.
Yep.
And I think you're talking about the last thing we see, which is him teaching still, but he's teaching Iridian children who are all raising their little stone arms to tell him the speed of light.
Yeah. Yep. How did you feel about that?
It's fucking delightful. And I think they've done such goodwill with Rocky that I was like, I love all of you little rock children.
I felt a little bit like it ended on like a wink, you know, and it didn't need to. I think I would have been just as happy if he was sitting on the beach and the last thing that Rocky said was think about it a long time. I don't think I needed to know that like Ryland Grace is now teaching Iridian Middle School, but I understand like that it's a heartwarming, happy moment instead of like a heartwarming, maybe potentially gut-wrenching moment if Grace does decide to go home.
Yeah.
It sort of sets up this idea that like he's probably not leaving.
And it sets up this idea that if he doesn't leave, he's okay, more so. That he has something already established, I guess. Which I think in the book, we find out not through Rocky. I think Rocky tells him he succeeded in the sense that Iridian scientists have seen that Sol is getting brighter. So he knows he succeeded either way, is the nice thing.
Yeah.
I think I'd said coming out of the movie, the only reason I would want to see him go home is to fucking punch Ava Stratz straight in the face. I was like, the only way this motherfucker's going back is to take her ass out.
Okay, two things. Number one, did you get like a weird sense that maybe something romantic was going on between the two of them?
Absolutely. Particularly,
Why?
I think during that karaoke moment, and you just see him sort of longingly looking at her. But I think it's more in awe than in romance.
Totally. Second, what the fuck was that and why did we need it? I know people are talking about like she should be nominated for an Oscar for that. I hate that song and I didn't appreciate that moment in the movie. I felt like I could have had my 3 fucking minutes back.
And I'm one of those people who really likes it. I think it's for a character who was so cold, it humanizes her and it shows that she's keeping a distance, but she understands, you know, the camaraderie. She just can't be a part of it in order to do her job and what she's doing.
I don't care for it.
That's fair enough. You know, if you were going to start cutting things, it is one of the first things that I'd be okay with you cutting. I'd be more okay with you cutting that than cutting the ending part out with him and the Iridian children.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I will agree with you there. I will agree with you there. This movie, and again, I understand how frustrating it must be for somebody who loves the book and has read the book multiple times to hear the two of us referring to this as a movie, because it is so much more than that for a lot of people, and it does have an origin, and there is a lot that we're missing. But like, I think that this movie is formulaic and predictable in a way that is so necessary, because it is so heartwarming and so like delightful and so full of hope and positivity and optimism that trying to go against these very common themes and like plot devices it would have to make it very anxiety inducing and like very overwhelming and stressful in a way that it doesn't need to be, because it already has some of that in there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if I'd call it formulaic and predictable. I think what I would say is it sort of is letting you know, sometimes in subtle ways, as stressful as things are, everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it does a lot to let you know tough situations do come up in the movie, but eventually it lets you know, like, don't worry, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it'll put you through it a little bit, but I feel like each step we go, things are still okay. And You get maybe two moments where things feel really not okay. It's Rocky getting hurt the first time, and it's him being told, you have to do this.
Yeah. That, it's funny. I kind of, looking back on the movie, it's easy to forget that he was like put into a coma against his will to go on this trip.
Yeah.
And that's like pretty dark.
There's apparently a much more explicit conversation in the book where, he gets up and he like sort of tries to run away in the movie. In the book, before he's put into this coma, he's literally telling her, he's going, you're killing me. You understand, you're actively choosing to kill me. Like, and it is really sad to read about. Every page I've seen from this, I'm very interested in. And I do have one last page that I do want to read to you. It's not about that moment, but it is about, since we were talking about being on Arid, it's sort of close to the ending of the book, if you want me to read it.
Please.
So Rocky says, so will you go home now or will you stay? The entities that make major decisions for Arid long ago offered to refuel the Hail Mary. It's still sitting in a nice stable orbit around Arid, where it's been since Rocky and I first arrived all those years ago. The Iridians could stock it up with food and supplies, helping make sure everything is working right and send me on my way. But so far, I haven't taken them up on it. It's a long, lonely journey, and until a minute ago, I didn't even know if Earth was still habitable. Arid may not be where I'm from, but at least I have friends here. I don't know. I'm getting old, and the trip is long. Rocky says, speaking from a selfish perspective, I hope you stay, but that's just me. Rocky, that news about Soul, it makes my whole life have meaning. I still can't, I start sobbing again. Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to be the one to tell you. And I guess something that's in the book, because I don't know how many years it's supposed to be. It also talks about Arid apparently has much heavier gravity. So he's, I guess, aging a little bit more quickly. I think he's like using a cane by the very end of the book.
Mm.
I do think there's like something so beautiful about like him growing old with Rocky. And it's not a romantic relationship, but that's his best friend. That's why if I was going to make this movie a minute longer, they mention Adrian on Arid, and I was like, I want to see Ryland meet Adrian.
Yeah, I thought that too.
I 100% thought that was coming, but I do think it's adorable. Rocky being like, close the door. I built the door. You closed the door. And he's talking about the water temperature, and he goes, I have Adrian look at this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I could watch anything with Rocky and Ryland, but here's where I want to stop my part of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go further in that because I feel like the talk I'm hearing now that this movie is being a success is maybe we do a sequel. And I'm like, no, there is nowhere else to go. And I do not want a sequel. I love Rocky and Ryland, and I'm sure I will probably many times enjoy rewatching this and rewatching that friendship. The one thing I've heard about is maybe the idea of an animated series of Ryland with the Hail Mary being faster than light, being able to go to different planets and help out or something. And I'm like, maybe if you're making that for kids, sure. I don't need any official continuation of this story, though.
No, I completely agree. I think it would do nothing but damage it. And it's just a money grab, and I'm not into that. If there are so many incredible stories that have been told that could be put into, film version. We don't need more of this,
It's so nice that this was an original story. Obviously, it's an adapted from a book, but this was not some other franchise movie. And seeing this have success, the lesson shouldn't be, let's make this a franchise. The lesson should be, let's take more chances on turning, good ideas into big movies.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I strike against with that is that this was such a huge budget that I get that this was like a bit of a risk, because this was a huge tentpole budget type, which I'll go more about that in the facts. But you've got all these major studios still in play, doling out more money than ever. Make a bunch of $25 million, $30 million movies, goddammit, and some of them are going to hit.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
People crave originality. That's what I hear too. And I'm excited for Avengers Doomsday, but it was so nice to see this and enter a whole new world.
I love a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes. Don't take away my end.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed. Okay. Last question for you. Are Are there any other relationships in movies, whether that we have done on the podcast or that you've seen, that the relationship between Ryland and Rocky reminded you of? Because two very specific ones come to mind for me.
Ooh. Um, I'd have to think about it. Do you want to give me yours first?
Yeah. So the first one that I think is maybe a little bit more obvious was the relationship between Luke Skywalker and R2D2.
Yeah, a little bit. I totally see why you say that. Like, this
Yeah.
is like if we understood R2D2 a little bit.
Yeah, and Luke does, right? Like Luke understands what he's saying and R2D2 understands Luke, but R2D2 can do things, but he's limited and Luke really has to be the one to like do the stuff. And when something happens to R2, you freak out because you're like that's my man, that's my dude, that's my guy.
Yeah, it feels like if R2D2 was nothing personal, a lot more important.
Yeah, and a lot more charismatic. Like he's,
Yes.
he is who he is. I think they did a really good job of making BB-8 a little bit more charismatic.
But neither one of them could ever fist my bump. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. And then the second relationship, maybe like a little bit less obvious, and I'm interested to hear what you think, is John McClane and Al Powell.
This is how I know you love Die Hard, that you brought this back to Die Hard.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you know what? I fucking see why you say it. Yeah, I could totally see that.
Al is on the outside and there's really nothing that he can do other than like help him, from his post. And
I'm just
at the
picturing
end,
poor Al Powell not be able to survive in our atmosphere. And I'm like,
oh,
no,
God.
get Al back in his bubble.
He needs to be back in his cop car, or at his donut shop. But
Get him in the Twinkie wrapper.
yeah, but I feel like they have such a bromance at the end, that it's like, this is nice.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think I can pick anything better than those two you just picked. Those are two very good examples, quite frankly.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well,
Yeah, like I'm literally looking through movies we did, and I'm like, the Cat in the Hat and those kids. I'm like, no.
Nope. No, I think those were really like it felt similar to me, but it
Russell
also felt
Crowe
like
and Ryan Gosling and the Nice Guys.
no.
Your John McClane and Al Powell is good.
Thank you. I appreciate
I would
that.
never have thought of it, but I like it.
Thank you.
I don't have any more facts except Rocky is amazing. I love Rocky.
You don't have any more facts?
Oh, I don't
You
have
don't
any
have more
more
opinions.
opinions.
I was like, I was promised facts.
I have many facts. Would you like me to get to them?
Mm-hmm.
I want the truth!
Face the facts, ducks.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
Starting with our ratings, this is as of, I want to say, I guess I'll say as of April 1st, but this is still ongoing. On the tomato meter, it has a 95% with 340 fresh reviews and 18 rotten. It has an audience score of 96% with an average score of 4.7 out of 5. On IMDb, it has an 8.4 out of 10. It was released March 20th, 2026. It had a budget of $200 million. And as of March 30th, it has grossed $317 million. The critics' consensus, Robert Daniels from RogerEbert.com said it's an enjoyable yet overly familiar excursion. By disavowing narrative and aesthetic boundaries, Project Hail Mary struggles to become boundless. Donald Clark from the Irish Times, so I'm going to read it with a brogue. If it were not for an unfortunate outbreak of too many endings syndrome, a hangover from the book, we might have had a classic for the ages. It is still pretty darn strong.
That was actually really good and way better than I expected it to be.
Oh, thank you, you fair lass. This next one from John Nugent from Empire Magazine. Now I feel like I'm going to slip back into Irish. I can't do it. Okay. This is, for the most part, oh no, an absolute space smash. Stupidly entertaining stuff about seriously clever speculative concepts. Hail Mary. And lastly, Raphael Guzman from Newsday. Gosling carries the day. Grace's enemy is his own weakness. That story, the human one, is what'll stay with you when the mission is over. Letterboxd reviews?
Please.
This one from Mac. The definition of accidentally became important at work and it's ruining my life.
Oh, so real.
Mm-hmm. This one from Ludwig. Grace Rocky Save Cinema.
Aww.
This one from User Wake. Wasn't expecting this much fisting. And this one is from Matthew Kelly, aka Nando, who's been on our podcast before.
Of course.
Imagine if she got up there and sang Watermelon Sugar instead.
Agreed.
So the movie is directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who also directed 21 and 22 Jump Street, the Lego movie, and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They've also famously produced the Spider-Verse movies, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and the Lego Batman movie.
Wow. We like some of those movies.
Lord and Miller are pretty good. They actually were very famously attached to direct Solo, a Star Wars story, and got fired from that, which I can't see why in retrospect, but Ron Howard ended up taking over for them.
Oh my God.
Supposedly,
It wasn't
I
Ron
think
Howard
their
who fired
version was
them.
going to be too humorous.
Oh, okay.
The screenplay was written by Drew Goddard, who also wrote The Cabin in the Woods, The Martian, Daredevil, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and High Potential, and adapted from the book by Andy Weir. Stars Ryan Gosling as... Did I say Ryland? No. Starring Ryan Gosling as Ryland Grace, who you might know from Barbie, La La Land, Drive, and The Nice Guys. Sandra Hüller as Ava Strad, who you might know from The Zone of Interest, Anatomy of a Fall, and Tony Erdmann. And puppeteer James Ortiz as the voice of Rocky and the leader of the 5 Rocketeers responsible for his movements.
Also, the girl from the Verizon commercials.
And who could forget? Oh, I feel like I would know her name if I heard it, but I'm not going to just try and pull it from the Verizon commercials. Yes. The music is by Daniel Pemberton, who also did the music for the Spider-Verse movies, Slow Horses, and Ocean's 8. Director of photography is Greg Fraser, who also shot Dune Part 1 and Part 2, The Batman, Rogue One, and Zero Dark 30.
Wow.
Okay. I have such facts to share with you. So, this is the biggest opening weekend of 2026 so far, and the second highest of Ryan Gosling's career, second to Barbie.
Oh, wow.
So, I'm stealing this from Dan Murrell. There are 3 other movies with the word Mary in the title that have grossed over $100 million domestically. Can you name them? Mary in the title.
No, I cannot.
Mary Poppins.
Oh, I love that movie.
Mary Poppins Returns.
Nope, never heard of it.
Revenge of the Poppins. No. And the last one is There's Something About Mary.
Oh, interesting.
Ryan Gosling was asked his favorite video game in the Happy Sad Confused podcast, and he said Pitfall.
Oh, I love Pitfall.
I thought you would like that.
Oh my God, we used to play the shit out of Pitfall. That was scary.
Shout out Super Nintendo. Lord and Miller revealed that Steven Spielberg heard Rocky Speaks in Song and said, oh, he should do the Close Encounters theme. And they were like, okay, if you're saying it. One of Andy Weir's inspirations for the Ryland-Rocky relationship is the movie Enemy Mine, which is on my list and one that I still think we should do at some point.
You just tell me when.
It was Ryan Gosling's idea, realizing that Amazon and owned MGM and that they owned the Rocky movies, to have Ryland show Rocky the entire series of Rocky and Creed movies.
That's awesome.
James Ortiz called Rocky a combination of childlike wonder and deep impatience, which I thought was a very good description for what we see from him.
Yeah.
Real astronauts visited the set and were consulting, and while Gosling was fumbling around in zero gravity, they said that really is much more the case of what it's like. Usually they were like, when you're first up there, you're just clumsy and getting hurt a lot.
That's funny.
Ryland's first outfit when he's coming out of the coma was called the placenta onesie, and it was filled with goo, but that didn't really read on camera. And they were like, I wish in retrospect we had done less goo. Arguably the saddest part of Project Hail Mary, Rocky reached Tau Ceti 46 years before Ryland Grace. When Ryland Grace stared up at the stars for the first time as a child, Rocky was already there alone with no one to watch over him while he slept.
Oh, Rocky.
I'm okay. According to Lord and Miller, Rocky's 291 years old. In the score for the movie, there are children clapping, feet stomping, and voices because the directors wanted the score to feel human and like the whole world was behind Ryland, even though he was alone.
Aww.
So shout out to the Lord and Miller and Daniel Pemberton. We see at one point when Ryland is thinking about returning to Earth or to Rocky, he looks down at his arm and we can see a scar from when Rocky grabbed him and pulled him to safety after stabilizing the ship.
No.
James Ortiz said about half the time the puppet was used and it's just digitally removing the puppeteers. The other half, Rocky is full CGI, but always with reference of some kind. So Ortiz would be at set and at times would even just have the empty ball rolling around as a pass that he would roll through the set as Rocky to make a mess and see how it would go through the set. So you can see behind the scenes footage of him just pushing the empty ball around the set going, I go here, this room boring, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
The scene where Ava Stratt sings karaoke was not in the original script. Gosling overheard Sandra Hüller singing between takes and asked her to perform for the movie just 48 hours before filming the scene. Hüller agreed, and she herself selected Sign of the Times as the song. This is Sandra Hüller's first American movie. 4 actors are credited in the movie as rejected Rocky voice. Eunice Huthart, Damien de Froberville, Ray Porter, who actually does the voice for the audiobook and was Darkseid's voice in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and he was Dale the Whale in one episode of Monk. And last rejected Rocky voice, Meryl Streep.
Of course.
The name of the main character is Ryland Grace. The name of the ship is the Hail Mary, so Hail Mary full of grace.
Mm.
The protagonist, Grace, and the frequently repeated phrase that Rocky likes to say, amaze, 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 combine to become another well-known religious chant, Amazing Grace.
Mm.
The scene where Stratt is watching Grace and Rocky's logs on the futuristic frozen Earth is an original scene not included in the book. In the source material, years in the future on Arid, Rocky informs Grace that souls returned to its original luminosity, implying that the Earth had been saved. Andy Weir declared that a fan suggestion about the end of the story was canon. Grace named the living area the Iridians built for him Graceland, and then refused to explain to Rocky why he finds the name so funny. Grace's habit of hanging his glasses off his ears below his chin was something Ryan Gosling came up with. It wasn't until 2 weeks into filming that he found out people who wear glasses do not do this. But by then, they shot too many scenes of him doing it to cut this out. Daniel Craig's character in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo also has the same habit of hanging his glasses from one ear.
Yeah, there's just, as someone who wears glasses, absolutely fucking not. Like, you do everything in your power to not let the lenses touch your face, because then the rest of your day is ruined. And
it's also going to destroy like the arm of the glasses, isn't it?
Not as much as it's going to risk. First of all, they're going to fall the fuck off and you're going to step on them because you can't see them. But worse than that, I think they're going to get dirty. And all of these, there are scenes in movies and television that would have you believe that you could just like, and then wipe them. That's not how it fucking works. Once they're dirty, they're dirty. It's it. It's like, you need like the special wipes. Sometimes I use Windex, which you're not supposed to do, but I don't give a fuck.
Isn't any spray way up there? I don't see any glass cleaner. And the place is dirty, dirty, dirty. He's not using cleaning products like that.
Room for trash.
I do love this room boring. And it's because it's just video that he can't see yet.
Yes.
Grace briefly mentions that the Iridians haven't discovered relativity. The book explains that this is the reason Rocky's ship held enough fuel for the return trip and to refuel the Hail Mary. They didn't know the relativistic time dilation and lathe contraction effects, so they thought they needed much more fuel to reach Tau Ceti.
Oh, interesting.
There are a number of events in the book which do not happen in the film. These include the ship's computer does not allow Grace into the control room until he remembers and can speak his name, which takes a while. Grace does not immediately realize that he is not on Earth when he wakes up from his coma. He works out that the gravity seems too high and conducts his own experiments to measure the gravity level. After determining that astrophage is mostly water, Grace goes back to teaching, but in his first class, the students ask him about what is happening to the sun. After explaining astrophage to them and realizing they'll have to live through the hard times that will come as a result of the astrophage's effects, he abandons the class and immediately goes back to Stratt's lab to continue to the research.
Aww.
Before Rocky connects his ship to the Hail Mary, Grace has to send him a sample of his hull. He does a spacewalk to break off a chunk covering one of the fuel tanks, throws it to Rocky's ship, and it is caught by his hull robot. A large section of the Sahara Desert is paved to help with astrophage production. Stratt orders several natural disasters to be caused to accelerate global warming and therefore buy humanity more time. Most
Jesus
famously,
Christ.
they nuke Antarctica in the book. The Talmeba escapes while Rocky is still with Grace and eat all the Hail Mary's fuel, forcing them to use the Beetles as miniature engines to Rocky's ship. There are 2 other key details for 2 of the major decisions left out from the film. This is the last of what I got for you, Gab.
Okay.
First, the main reason why Grace was kept involved in the Hail Mary project once his scientific theory about life was proven irrelevant is because he carried a rare gene made him suitable for the long-induced comas required for the journey. This gene was carried by all 6 astronauts, including the backups. So once the 2 scientist astronauts died in the explosion, it was simply impossible to find a qualified scientist also carrying the rare gene. Second, Grace mentions needing to ration food to live longer, but this was before Rocky said he could spare some astrophage fuel to get Grace home. When Grace realizes Rocky is stranded in space without any fuel, he knows he won't have enough food to make it back to Earth. If he rescues Rocky, even if they're able to breed more astrophage, he'll starve before he gets back. Later, a rocket notes the Talmiba is a protein and can be grown as food for Grace.
Oh.
We also find out on Arid that they apparently make food for Ryland that is supposedly based off of human DNA. So it's kind of like these cannibal burgers that are being produced for him. But I guess he gets used to those.
Gross.
Oh, that is all the facts I have.
But wait, Dylan, we have mail.
Let's get to the mail.
Mail time! When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
I'm going to start with our comments. First, we have a comment on the episode on YouTube from Ice T Fan 76. Which
What's up?
I'm guessing the drink, but it could also be Law and Order SVU actor Ice T.
I hope it is. You know, one time Ice-T told me I was beautiful.
Really?
I swear to God, that's a real story.
Was it in front of Coco?
No, he's not suicidal.
That's what I thought. Okay. Ice T Fan said, "Oh my God, this is like the 7th or so episode of this podcast I can listen to because I've seen this movie and like it a lot.
Aw, yay!
Good for you." We have a comment from Katara Marcus Interrante, who was talking about the video comparing Peter Weller and young Jeremy Sisto, who said they both voiced Batman at some point, which is true. Jeremy Sisto was the voice of Batman on Justice League The New Frontier, while Peter Weller was the voice of Batman on The Dark Knight Returns.
And as we all know, 99% of our listenership is only here for the Batman.
Just the way I like it. And then we got a bunch of comments about the character actor Mount Rushmore thing, which was mostly just suggestions.
Let's hear them.
Little Missy Texas said Gary freaking Oldman.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. I feel he's kind of like too big a deal to be a character actor, but yeah, Gary Oldman. No, Gary Oldman's a perfect answer. I'm wrong. Gary Oldman's a great answer.
Honestly.
Back to the Future Girl said, not the Fast Times at the Flying Machine. How do you talk about movies and actors and not know Back to the Future? He just couldn't pull the title for a second. Come on.
Yeah, come on. I just had a brain fart. I've actually seen that movie.
Marty, to the Flying Machine.
Fast Times at the Flying Machine.
I kind of like that name better, honestly.
Thank you.
Fried Potato Baked said Alan Tudyk, which I do like Alan Tudyk.
Who is that?
I feel like if you Google him right now, you will totally know him. He was Sonny the Robot in iRobot. He has been in Firefly.
Yep. Say no more.
Okay. I feel like there's 1,000 other roles I could think of him. Oh, Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
He was in Superman.
Versus Tucker and Dale versus the Apocalypse. Yes, he was the voice of Gary the Robot in Superman.
Yep. He kind of looked like him.
Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I was right.
Yeah.
The Frontera said Paul Giamatti. Great
answer.
Ooh,
great answer.
All-timer. Which at some point we do have to do Big Fat Liar.
Oh my God, I freaking love that movie.
A great role for Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
By the Rilla said Margot Martindale in the late great Catherine O'Hara, which both phenomenal answers. Yep. Catherine O'Hara, God rest her soul. So many good roles.
We miss her.
What was the show? Schitt's Creek. Little overrated.
I would say that I liked it. I didn't love it. There were definitely moments that I loved, but overall, it wasn't like The Office to me, you know?
Yeah, I think it was really good comfort food. It was not an exquisite meal. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yes.
Lady of the Blade said Doc Brown, Jim on Taxi, whatever his name was, Christopher Lloyd, is in Camp Nowhere. I don't know Camp Nowhere, but okay.
He's also in Over the Garden Wall.
Oh yeah, he's the woodsman.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan Pabletti, 163, agreed, Paul Giamatti. So we got 2 Paul Giamattis.
Wow.
Yes. Gab, I got a couple emails for you as well.
Can I add one really quickly while we're on the subject? How do you feel about John Malkovich?
I feel good about John Malkovich. How do you feel about John Goodman?
Love John Goodman.
I'm sure we could come up with a bunch of just Johns who would work here.
Yeah. The John Mount Rushmore, if you will.
We got 2 for the John Mount Rushmore. Yeah. This is an email from Eric LeBeau. The subject is no subject. I would suggest The Crow, but not sure if it would be Gab's cup of tea based on all I've heard. Do you know anything about The Crow?
Is this Alfred Hitchcock?
That's the Crows. No, that's the Birds, not the Crows. I'm doing it Fast Times at the Flying Machine. The Birds you're thinking of. The Crow is the one where Brandon Lee died on. He was shot during the making of the movie.
Oh, they still made that movie?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, if I died to make the movie and we were 80% of the way through, I'd be like, find a way to finish this fucking thing.
They didn't finish the Alec Baldwin, though, right?
Rust? Yes, they did.
They did?
Of course they did.
Did you watch it?
No, but the money's been spent, Gab. They're making the movie.
Wow. Wasn't that the DP?
Yeah.
Shit.
Halia Hutchins or something like that, I think her name was.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, this is all blowing my mind. Listen, I don't have any reason not to watch it other than like yikes. My fear is that I wouldn't like it because of the age of the film, if that makes sense.
It's a little dated, but it's also kind of cool and very different from, I feel like, a lot of movies that were coming out at the time. It's also just, I'm trying to think of a way to describe the soundtrack. Have you ever seen Hackers?
No.
Fuck. I don't know. It's just got a very specific soundtrack like Hackers does that you're like, oh, this is clearly all this very kind of like hardcore sounding music. Oh, this is the Crow, isn't it? And it's also got a bunch of actors that it's a very character actor-y movie.
Why do I feel like this movie came out in the 60s?
1994.
Oh.
Yeah.
And okay. I'm sorry.
It's only 32 years ago.
I mean, we were alive. I think, wow. Now, let me ask you this. Is the scene in which he is fatally shot included in the film?
Yes. I don't think that you can tell, like, I don't know if they used the take that he died on for the movie, if that's what you're asking me.
That is what I'm asking.
That I'm not certain on, and if we did the movie, that would have to be in my facts, I suppose.
I'm kind of down just for the morbid curiosity, but I do feel sad about it for him.
Let's put it on our listener suggested list that we will surely get to at some point.
Okay.
From now on, we should declare like 1 month to be listener month. We should be like, it's January, the month of the listener, where we only do listener movies for the 2 movies we'll do.
Yeah, okay, we can do that.
We'll circle back to it. Gab doesn't want to do it.
I'm shaking my head no while I say it with such a positive voice.
She said, we can do that, as she violently shook her head.
No.
I think she hurt her neck just now. Okay. And we have an email from our Canadian correspondent, Kyle.
Hello, Kyle.
I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say about Project Hail Mary. And it made me think, because obviously I am your only Canadian friend, but you're reviewing a film with Canadian icon Ryan Gosling. What are the Canadianisms that you think you know about or that you've heard about growing up in New York? I'm really curious to getting New Yorkers' perspectives on what they think about Canadians. Love the podcast. Keep up the great work, guys. Bye.
God, what are your Canadian stereotypes is basically what I feel like Kyle's asking us.
Well, I feel like Canadians are super nice.
Super nice. Hockey.
Maple syrup.
French about half to 60% of the time. French speaking.
A boot.
Don't you know?
Yeah, cold weather. That's not a stereotype.
Listen here, you cold-weathered piece of crap.
No, I feel like honestly, so I do have a lot of Canadian friends. I feel like people that live in New York City, like I don't know, like I feel like if you're Canadian and you've left home, you either live in Toronto or you live in New York City. That's a very I know.
You're Canadian, you left. You're in Toronto. I'm like, you sure about that?
No,
which
but
they don't say Toronto, they say Toronto.
I know, which is so weird. I feel like I guess what I'm saying is if I know you and you're Canadian, it's because you live in New York City. And so to me, actually, have I ever told you my Canadian weird through line story?
No.
So very briefly, so the only 2 Canadians I knew at that point knew each other.
Wonderful story, Gab.
Thank you.
I surely won't cut that out.
No, please cut it. Please cut it. But I think my last point on Canadians is this. I do have some Canadian friends, and one of them, he has the same first name as the actor who very famously portrays Han Solo.
Harrison.
Yeah, Harrison. Say it again.
Harrison.
Harrison.
Okay.
Are we saying this the same way?
Harrison.
Harrison. We're from the same place.
We're saying it the same way.
Yeah.
We're saying the same thing, Jake.
They make fun of me relentlessly for the way I say Harrison.
How do they say it?
I can't even tell you. So Kyle, how do you say Harrison?
Harrison?
Yeah. Harrison or some shit like that. I'm
Harrison?
like, guys, it's Harrison. They're like, oh, you're gonna go get a bagel after this, Harrison? And I'm like, that's not how I say it. Harrison.
What a smear of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, cut the majority of what I said. Editing, Dylan.
Oh, great. More work for editing, Dylan. Editing, Dylan, to the verdicts. That's how we should just do all transitions now. Editing, Dylan.
Please take it away.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
Did you cry?
I teared. I don't think I full on
times?
cried, but I teared up. No, the first time, not the second time, once I already knew it was coming. But I think the second time I got more emotional at the funeral moment than I did the first time. I think the movie's pretty goddamn great. I think the only thing I wish is maybe if it was tightened up a little bit, but Gab, you and I are talking about it now. There's nothing obvious that I can say like, oh yeah, you could cut that off. In fact, I think it's a miracle they got it as short as they did. I think Ryan Gosling is incredible. I think James Ortiz is incredible. The effects are incredible, both practical and CG. I've seen it the past 2 weekends, Gab, and if you said to me, I'm coming to Long Island, let's go see it this weekend in IMAX or 4DX or some shit like that, I'd be like, fuck, I guess we're watching it. I loved it. I think it's a movie to watch before you die.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned to you, I'm not a big space movie person. I don't like the concept of being lost in space. I'm not sure that there are many people who do, but it definitely like strikes a weird chord with me that is not intentional. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like, this isn't like a phobia of mine that I'm going to get lost in space. I just don't enjoy it. And so I went in a little skeptical, but I think that what this movie does really, really, really well is it gives you all of these hopeless scenarios and finds hope in them. From Rocky and Grace communicating with one another to them like solving the problem with the astrophage to Ryland going back to save Rocky. It's full of hope and optimism. And I just feel like we need that so badly. And it was beautiful and it made me so happy. And as much as I didn't think I was going to love it, I did. It was excellent. I've recommended it to like everybody I've spoken to since we went and saw it. And, you know, I think if I had to invent a problem with this movie in order to not just dead give away how much I loved it from the jump, I would probably say that it did feel a little bit predictable. It felt a little bit like those like tropes of, oh, we think he's dead and then like he comes back, he's okay, and like, oh no, I have to go save him, oh, I saved him, like, but I don't think that needs to be unpredictable. I think it works perfectly because those are the stories that we love and that make us feel good. And so my verdict is it is absolutely a movie to watch before you die. I'm sure it's a book to read before you die, but that's for a different podcast. And I don't have any issue other than the fact that I hate that fucking Harry Styles song and I wish she didn't sing it.
I remember when the James Gunn Superman movie came out, they were calling it Hopium. And I feel like this movie is also Hopium and you can inject it straight into my veins.
Yeah, agreed.
I loved it. I will probably watch it again by the time it's on streaming. Absolutely. I don't think I'll go to the theater to see it again, but who knows? I just might. Because you know what? I love that this movie's succeeding and I hope that the takeaway from it is make more great original movie ideas.
Totally. Totally off topic. Amazon buying MGM. How do you feel about this?
I don't love that it feels like we're going to be down to like one studio that doles out your AI slop and you will love it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't love that. I don't love Warner Brothers being bought by Paramount. It's not good. Consolidation just means they need less people, which means less jobs, which means higher prices. I don't know. It's all bad. It's all bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like in the early days of filmmaking when there were like 3 studios and you were hired by a studio and those were the movies you did. Like I really don't want that to happen. But
you
of
sign
course,
a 10-year contract with the studio with some guy who's constantly smoking cigars and you're forced to be a slave to them.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just feels very like, history repeats itself and it's a tough time to be in that industry. And I have clients and Corey has clients who are in the industry and they are struggling. So I feel for them. But yeah, as soon as Amazon popped up, I was like, I'm sorry. Really? Like, excuse me?
Yeah, I had someone lean over to me and go, "Don't like that."
Yeah. Felt the same way.
They also own
but
James
yeah.
Bond now too. Yeah,
Wow.
and eventually they'll own all of us as well. It's Amazon. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
we'll all either be
But
owned by Amazon or Apple at some point.
you live long enough, you get owned by one of the major companies.
Yep.
All right, Dill, you want to say the things we say or you want me to say the things we say?
I did all that research. You say the things.
Fine. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. If you have a movie that you think is one to watch before you die, you can send it over to us in an email at movies-to-watch-before-you-die@gmail.com. You can send us a voice note to that same email address. You can leave a comment on however you have found this podcast, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, perhaps, etc. Let us know what you think. In the link tree in the description below, you will find a link to our friends at the Hall of Pods podcasting networks. Check out all of their awesome podcasts as well. You will also find a link to some other cool shit like my Venmo, our merch store, and some other stuff. And this is where I sort of run out of fuel. I need some more astrophage. So thanks for listening. And, we think you're amazing.
Apology.
Rocky, stay.
Rocky, new to ball.
Rocky, my hand is up. We can't just show up in a space ball unannounced and move into someone else's spaceship, right? There has to be boundaries. We have one mission. But we're 2 distinct individuals. Both working on our distinct individual parts of that mission. Separately.
Separately.
Okay.
Where my bedroom?
Bedroom?